Darling, they never said the Psyce podcast was too much.
Who know more about music than us?
The Psyce is a black podcast spanning all genres with a sprinkle of pop culture and a shit ton of food.
If you're not from DC, you probably don't know what Psyce means.
No, sure.
You want to kick it off?
So we have a very, 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 very special guest on our podcast today. We are here with none other than the infamous Touré.
Infamous? Wow.
Infamous, so all of our guests are infamous as well.
You don't last this long without some infamy. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, sure. Dig it. Okay.
But yeah, we are super excited. We're now over the hump of our 100th episode. So we got to go big for 101. So we have an OG, a legend in the music game, Touré. Everybody cheer it up. Our co-hosts are very excited people, so they're probably really sitting at home clapping,
like literally.
And we call our listeners co-hosts, so when you hear that, that's who we're talking about.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So, Touré, we do have some young people in the room. So for folks who don't know who you are, how would you describe yourself? And not like the boring, bio that has like what college you went to and like all that boring stuff. Like, tell us about Touré, the music head, the like OG cool kid of New York.
I mean, I love Black people. I love music. I love culture. I like telling stories and talking about the culture, what's going on inside the culture. I just love all of that and being part of that, and I take it very seriously, and I think it's really important. I think Black culture is very important. So, yeah, like I just want to, in the 90s, I was at Rolling Stone writing about rappers. A decade after that, I was at CNN and then BET, talking about the culture. I was able to go to MSNBC for a few years to talk about politics and stuff. Now I'm at the Griot, again, like talking about culture, what's going on with Black people. And, I've always loved that. I love us. I love thinking about just what makes this culture, and it's like the smallest things. I was walking with this white guy who's a friend of mine, and he was asking me about the nod and just sort of the notion of I live in Fort Greene, you say hi to every Black man you pass. It may or may not be verbal, and, but it's little things. And, he was like, we came to somebody that I knew that he didn't, and he tried to nod to them, but he went like up in this awkward way. And I went down like, what's up? And it was like, see, like you heard about it and you're aware of it, but you still didn't really get it because this is not part of your cultural language. When you walk around, you don't have Black men all the time. Now you're like, yo, what's up? Like, right. And so you do it wrong. It doesn't look right. It reminded me of this TikTok I saw where this mixed brother was complaining that he had nodded and people had not responded. And this sister came in, stitched it, came in after him and was like, the problem is you nodded with the wrong part of your ancestry. And you said, when you meant, and like, you should have nodded with your Blackness and then they would have understood you. And it's like, yeah, it's the smallest things. It's in the food. It's in the way that we greet each other. It's in the words that we use. It's in the way that we nod. And I love all that stuff.
And this is going off script from what our run of show was, but you brought this up, so I have to now bring this up, that I have a hardback copy of your book, Who's Afraid of Post-Blackness?
Oh, thank you.
And I bought it when it came out, not like you can like throw it back. I got it in real time. And so I've always appreciated the way you've been able to document cultural Blackness. And also include other voices in that as well. And because of your resume bouncing around, you've also been able to talk about our culture in different spaces and in different ways. That like you're literally kind of like a walk-in archive, I would say, in some way.
Well, that's just a nice way of saying you're old, but that's fine.
It's really not.
I'll take the way you put it. I'll take that. You do see it in like, I'm watching hip hop since Rapper's Delight was out in real time, right? Like when it came on the radio, we did not know. We were like, yo, what is that? The first time I heard it, I was like, yo, what is that? And I watched hip hop develop step by step. It was Curtis Blow, it was mixtapes, and then it's albums, and then Run DMC's on Johnny Carson. Like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And watching it develop. So there is I don't want to say archive, but like you see it differently when you can see a longer stretch of time. And like I lived through the entirety of hip hop history. So you can sort of make extrapolations or make sort of just understandings of like, oh, like that comes from that, and that is related to that, which is one of the things that we're going to talk about in the second season of my podcast, which we haven't gotten to. Jamaica is one of the fathers of hip hop and does not get sufficient respect. Clive Campbell, Kool Herc, came from Kingston to the Bronx. So he's bringing all whatever he had soaked in from Kingston, but also the whole thing of a sound system that was revolutionary in the Bronx in 69? What are we, 1973? That was normal in Kingston. Yeah. He just transported Kingston culture to the Bronx, right? And like talking over the records, they were doing that. So Jamaica is a direct father of hip hop, but we don't usually talk about that. And when you have a little bit of a longer perspective on the world, you can sort of see some of those sort of things. So, I appreciate the way that you said you're old.
Well, what I wanted to really say was that you kind of got into it was that in Who's Afraid of Post-Blackness, you're like, if there's a million Black people in the world, there's a million different ways to be Black, right? Yeah. I think that was like in the intro of the book. And so you even bringing up Jamaica and its connection to hip hop is so important because when we talk about Blackness, most of the time we mean Black American.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's how stories get left out. Like when I found out in my I was like 28, 29, that Shirley Chisholm was Caribbean, I was like, wait, what?
See?
So things get erased, but go ahead.
I was just going to say, just to push the conversation about you basically being someone else who also pushes the oral history and the nuances of pop culture in those different spaces, like being the first correspondent of pop culture at CNN, like those affordabilities teach people things that they might not have known, whether they're Black or not. And that is really important to us as a podcast, because when you're talking about something that may be niche to an entire culture, it is important to uplift the ways that other people have those touch points as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, having been around for a while is helpful. You want to talk about Prince. We all love Prince. Obsessed. I remember hearing the early records on the radio and was like, who's that? I remember hearing Controversy and thinking, oh, he's saying he's controversial to then be controversial. Because, there was some level of scandalous, but there was some level of like, okay, sure, brother, go do your thing. Like, whatever. But there, he definitely had people talking with the outfits and all that. But to follow the career, and then like late in his career, be blessed to be able to interview him in person. It's like crazy. And then to be able to talk about him to his family, that has been one of the great honors of my career, because there was a time when I was like, I want to write a book. What should I write a book about? I think I was in the bookstore. I was like, there's no great book about Prince. And he was still alive then. And I was like, I would, because if you're going to write a book, you got to be willing to be obsessed about a certain subject for like 3 years at least, right? It's pretty much all you're thinking about. So I'm like, could I be obsessed, like super obsessed? Like I was a fan, but like, could I be super obsessed with Prince for like 3 years? Like, yes, I could do that. And like listen to those songs over and over and unpack that story. And like, okay, yeah, like I think that's a good journey to go on. So, I mean, it just was, and that book was liked by I Would Die for You. My first book on him was liked by a lot of people in the family. So when I went back to do another book of like, hey, let's do an oral history of them, people were like, you love him, you are serious about him, so we'll talk to you when we wouldn't necessarily talk to other people.
Right.
So, I mean, having a long period of time to watch Prince in the world definitely helped me tell that story. I grew up reading this. I say grew up like the first few years when I was in New York and trying to become a writer and getting some assignments and doing good, but really feeling like I still have I still have so much to learn. I'm still constantly thinking about the craft, but like when I was really in like really active learning mode, I read this Joan Didion essay over and over through several years. Um, uh, I just lost the name. Goodbye to All That, where she's talking about her youth in New York City over time and how the 22-year-old Joan could not understand what the 29-year-old Joan would come to understand very well. And I read it when I was like 22 and I thought I understood it. And then I read it again when I was 24 and I understood it better. And I thought I understood it. And I read it again when I was 28 and I'm like, oh, now I really understand it. Where I thought now I really understand. And, that sort of progression of time multiplied has definitely been like, okay, I think I understand things a little bit better. Which is not to say that I have not learned a tremendous amount from Black millennials and have definitely looked at them of like, you guys are coming with new ideas, and I love that, and I respect that, and I have learned a lot from them. It made me think about during the George Floyd 2020 protests, and we were all on the street in New York City. Where are you guys?
Well, I was in Brooklyn then.
You were in Brooklyn then? Okay, where are you now?
I'm in Philly now.
Okay, so yeah, it was popping in Philly, but you were in Brooklyn. You know how it was. Marches are going on constantly, day after day. I would just run out and join. I'd hear people rolling by on the street and run out and join them. I just learned from the millennials that I was around, visually and personally. Like I thought I was unapologetically Black, and when I really got closer to a lot of them, I was like, yo, there's a deeper level.
Yeah.
Like there's more no fucks that I could give.
I don't know if it's a deeper level. I think that millennials, not us, because I think we were kind of raised old school, but for a lot of millennials, they were raised a bit disconnected from Black culture. So they've had to make the effort to really immerse themselves in it. And when you make that kind of effort, it just comes, it just gets expressed a little louder than us who are like, okay, that's regular. Okay.
Yeah, one of the things about them that I learned and really blows me away, because I spent enough time and emotional energy and mental energy in high school and in college explaining race and racism to white people in the classroom, outside of the classroom. And it didn't really strike me as emotionally expensive because I was used to doing that all the time. So I was like, this is just the price of being here in these institutions. It is what it is. And then millennials came out and they were like, I'm not doing your work for you. You can go read a book and I'll tell you what books to read, but you can figure. And I was like, yo, I did not know you could say that.
You need to send some invoices out.
Yeah. People owe you.
And like the notion of like protect your peace, I was like, yes,
what is peace?
I didn't
like what is peace? What is a paid internship?
Right. So it's been a bunch of things. So I appreciate the perspective that you get from having to watch the culture over a long period of time. But I want to give respect to the folks who have also been, a teacher for me and for other Gen Xers.
I think that conversation gets exhaustive for millennials specifically because of the internet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's always a conversation going on. And I think people have gotten to the point where they're just like tired of over explaining, tired of mansplaining, tired of race splaining. And we just got to a point where we were like, but the information is there. So if I know it, you can too. What's going on? Like,
You know,
what is the truth?
I think most of the time I had those conversations in high school and college. I felt like the person I was talking to was asking and listening in good faith. They
Mhm.
may or may not understand me or agree with me, but in retrospect, I felt like, okay, you were approaching the conversation in good faith. Nowadays, we are constantly having people approach us in bad faith. And
Yeah.
I don't understand. Show me systemic racism. Show me a specific example that happens 1,000% of the time. I would love to, like, you're in bad faith. Fuck you. The information's there. It's a documentary. It's a podcast. It's a book. It's
Right.
it's a cartoon. It's a reel. You can figure it out if you wanted to figure it out.
It's everything.
It's a real.
Like, it's literally around us all the time.
So let's jump into the podcast. So it is called Being Black. And you're doing breakdowns of individual songs, which is definitely something that we have done on this cast because we are those annoying people that are like, that poor change at like the 2:15 mark. Or let's break this lyric down. We spent 10 minutes on one line in the song. So totally up our alley. And we would love to hear you talk about the genesis of the podcast, and how you selected the songs that you did. And then we'll ask you about some songs.
Yes, no, I've been trying to do something like this for years. So I was thrilled when the Griot gave me this opportunity to do this and to do it the way I wanted to do it. They didn't get in my way at all. I feel like great music, especially Black music, is inherently political, even if the speaker is not meaning to make a political statement. There is, in some way, probably some sort of political statement. I haven't talked about Ice Cube's uh, "It Was a Good Day" on my show yet, but I think about that song as like inherently political, even though he's not making a political statement. Because for somebody who's dealt with so much anger and rage in his cultural presentation, they suddenly say, I had a good day, like a Black person having just joy, just a nice day when they live in Compton in the belly of the beast. Like, that is a political statement. So that's the sort of thing that I'm trying to get at. I'm looking at big Black political issues from the 80s. This time, the next season will be the 70s, and then we'll do the 90s. But right now with the 80s, what are the big political issues and how can I talk about them through songs? Or how did the songs that were big speak to me on political issues? So like the first episode is about Tracy Chapman's Fast Car.
A song.
Right. And it's a song that's it's not a protest song. It is, but it's not. And it's firstly about poverty, right? It's a couple it's a woman, presumably, who, with her partner, wants to escape poverty. She doesn't actually give any. I think she does shade a little bit in a later verse to that this is a male that she's with, but she doesn't overtly use pronouns and make it clear, right? But I think she's suggesting that it's a woman talking to a man. But she wants to escape poverty, and Black poverty rose in the 80s. So we have continuity talking about that. But also this song, this woman became globally famous in a moment, right? There was a 1988 Nelson Mandela's 70th birthday concert, right? And, sometimes it's hard to understand history if you don't live through it because you guys live in a world where Nelson Mandela was president, right? Like, I grew up in a world where we thought he will never get out, and we were marching and protesting on his behalf as a symbol. It was not actually thinking he would ever get out of prison, much less become the president of South Africa. So this is his 25th year in prison. And the world was very Afrocentric then, especially Black people. So we really thought Africa's problems are our problems, right? And we're not free until they're free, and especially with apartheid. And this was such a major thing because as late as the 60s, people would talk about being called African was an insult, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't fully in their consciousness of understanding our connection to Africa, right? So 600 million people are watching this concert because we're Afrocentric, because we care about Nelson Mandela, because we care about apartheid. And Tracy Chapman does this song, and it's like the whole world stops. And the next day, she'd been out for months. Nobody was checking for this album. That day propelled her to superstardom, and after that, she's off to the races.
Legend icon.
So it's because of Afrocentrism that she gets in the door, right? But even more than that, she doesn't even get on that stage without affirmative action, because she grows up in Cleveland, single mother, single child, poverty, nothing is working out. And somebody's like, you could go to one of these great private schools, his boarding schools in New England. And she's like, what are you talking about? They know nothing. They don't even know that this exists. This pathway to the upper class they don't even know it exists. She gets in, she gets a scholarship through a better chance. This is affirmative action working, taking somebody who is intelligent and deserving of a chance and giving them an opportunity. And she flowers as a person, as a musician, as everything. This leads to her getting into Tufts in Boston, where she meets the guy whose father works at a record label and is also himself an executive, and they get her a record deal. And there was no certainty that somebody who made music like Tracy Chapman would get a record deal at all. But it's affirmative action that makes this possible. And then Jelani Cobb, the great, brilliant dean, comes in and he says, affirmative action led to Afrocentrism because all these Black people were being entered into institutions where they're the only one, and they're like, I need something more in my life as ballast, and they end up, Afrocentrism becomes this gigantic widespread thing in the community because people are like, I need more. So, which I didn't know when I started this journey of research. So, you see like all these different ways that I can talk about Black history of the 80s through this song, and we kind of just keep doing that throughout the series.
You're like speaking our language. No, this is our vibe. This is our podcast.
This is the podcast, honestly. Because I was literally about to say, I think that shows itself over and over and over again. Like, even just, I'm visiting Philly, I'm from DC. So just being here, being at Roots Picnic, just like seeing everybody's new wave of expression. Yeah, we
had a ball.
Always a good time.
And you saw the Fugees?
Some of them.
I'm fresh off knee surgery, and I was like, I can't take much more. And I went home, and then I got a text message that was like, oh, Prize and Wyclef just came out. And I was like, how do I teleport? Because how many mics before? Missing how many mics in person is still crushing me. I'm still processing my poor decision. Let's not talk about it. Yeah, We're moving on.
It's a pain point. But I will say that Roots was fantastic, and just being immersed in a city that has so much rich culture and Afrocentrism in it, and seeing the new waves of expression of that is really rewarding, because it's not like that everywhere. Like, we talk about that on the show a lot too. Like, Black is very different in different places. Yeah. So to see it in a way that I am very familiar with, when that's not the common thread today, was important to me.
Yeah.
And the through line between what you're talking about, our podcast, and the Roots is, we're also very intergenerational in how we talk about music, right? Like, we can't talk about, like, even Tracy Chapman, I remember we actually had a Descendants episode, like one of our first episodes, we talked about, like, the through lines of, like, a family tree of music, and we're like, yeah, well, before you had a Tracy Chapman, you had a Joan Armatrading, right? And then now we have Baby Rose, who is literally, like, their daughter and granddaughter, and she's a brand new artist. So intergenerationality, is that a word? It is right now. It's really important for us when we talk about music, and also being aware of, like, context. Because a lot of the young people now, they don't, they can talk about a song that came out in the 90s or the 80s and like, oh, this is sexism, this is that. And I was like, well, you have to understand the context of when it came out, what we were doing, how we were thinking, what Blackness looked like at that time, to kind of explain why songs are the way they are. Because when you look at certain things through a 2023 lens, it doesn't
hit the same.
Right.
About two things I've been thinking about recently with the passing of the great Tina Turner. It just reminded me that Tina is Beyonce's cultural mother.
Oh, absolutely. We talk about this all the time.
Right? 100%. And, I just recently saw, I was thinking about this, but it made me think about it more. There's this fantastic Little Richard documentary.
So good. It's so good.
He's right. And we talk about Jimi Hendrix and James Brown, and they are in there. Prince studied all of them, but quite often he's doing a Little Richard impression, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so real.
Down to the bouffant.
Right. And I love sort of making those connections and seeing who come. I think Janet more than Madonna is the mother of all these girls. Christina, Jessica, Brittany, all the way Katie, the way they do their thing. Mm-hmm. I think they're following more of the Janet model than the Madonna model.
Yeah,
correct.
I personally profess that daily because Janet taught everybody how to be a pop star. I feel like every woman that has come after her has to dip into her bucket at least a little bit, whether they recognize it or not. Like if you think about Sierra or Maya or Tinashe, who we adore, those girls are Janet's little girls. There wouldn't be them if it wasn't for her.
Janet did it without controversy.
Yep.
Right. And obviously the Super Bowl, I'm going to put that aside because that's a different thing. She was already a super duper star by that point.
Right.
Madonna was constantly selling controversy.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It was constantly to shock you in different ways. Janet was never about that.
Mm-hmm. I think that the general public has now gotten wise enough to point out when artists are shock therapists versus true artists or truly into what they're doing, and this is just what they give. They can tell the fakes. And I adore Madonna as well, but I do understand that it was just a very different expression and a very different give. And it was also accepted and welcomed very differently too, because then you have moments like the Super Bowl or just the velvet rope packaging in general. And Janet might have been ridiculed in certain areas where Madonna was not.
Right. Well, let me. Maybe I can ask you about how you feel about this because you are bringing.
We always have thoughts, so come on, ask us.
You're bringing up for me something else I go into in the show, and perhaps generationally, I don't fully understand. But because yes, we love the authentic artist, but we love a good troll who's doing it for the right reasons. And I spent a lot of time talking about Tyler the Creator. Right, in one of the episodes, right, where I'm talking about gay liberation, starting with Diana Ross, "I'm Coming Out," and what that.
Definitely want to talk about that episode.
Yeah. To what that did and what that meant to her and to the community, and then I go into talk about Sylvester as an artist whose career was limited because of his gayness. Right, there was major radio stations that are like, that's great, we're not playing that, right? So he became a star and an icon, but he could have been bigger. That record could have been bigger. Even yes, it's in the Smithsonian, but there were radio stations that wouldn't play it, as opposed to Tyler the Creator, who is basically I feel like he's trolling us in a way because he's constantly saying, "I'm gay, I'm gay, I'm gay, I'm gay, I'm gay," as if it would shock, but it doesn't shock. We're like, that's fine. Go ahead. Be James. It's fine. You like Frank? Fine. We're not shocked. It's fine. And he keeps saying it well, will it shock you if I say it this way? I'm like, no, not really. It's fine. Go ahead. I don't know. And partly I was like, just some of the people I was talking to, I was kind of like, help me understand this. Cause I don't really, what is he doing?
I have my own specific thoughts on Tyler the Creator in specific that I will share offline. But I do feel like Tyler's personal journey in his own gayness is what allows him to profess it in the way that he does, because he's trying to get the point across not only to us and the hip hop industry, but also himself as well. And fighting the stereotype. Yeah. I think he's fighting the stereotype that you have to be a specific way, look a certain way, have a certain amount of femininity or masculinity in your daily personality in order to be a Black gay man. And that is what constantly forces him to be like, I kissed a boy, remember?
So you think he's still working it out for himself?
Yes.
Do
That's
you?
my personal.
But I mean, I was like, is he really gay? I'm like, I'm not sure. Like you say it so much, I'm like, maybe you're just cosplaying as that. I mean, I don't know.
I think that if you use even Lil Nas as an example, it's just a different form of trolling for those same reasons that you're saying, because there's a conversation on the internet of, is this really what he does behind closed doors as a gay man, or is this performative to get the clicks and the clacks and the engagement that he would like to have by saying it all the time?
See,
So
I
it's
believe
a big conversation.
him, and I think that he is trolling those who would be offended by it. Like, you guys are so last century. Like,
Yeah.
oh, it bothers you that I'm like having sex with Satan in the video. Like, you're so tired. Like, it's a game. Like, come on. And we're like, yes, like you're mocking the conservatives. Fox News is going to eat that up. Like, yeah. But Tyler, I'm like, it seems more complicated. It's a more complicated game, I think.
Yeah.
And especially when the whole crew has like slowly come out over the years. So I think it's a very them thing, and them is in the whole crew, like including Frank, including Sid, including Steve, Lacey. So yeah, we'll talk offline.
I mean, I'm completely supportive. I mean, I feel like my generation watched homophobia happen in really tragic ways. And we're like, we're not going to be that. And, God bless the gay people who are my peers were seeding me and others with like, we're here, we're queer, get used to it in their own ways. Right. I remember there was a brother at my high school who's a teacher who had checks on his, because we used to use checks we didn't have Venmo.
Yeah, kids, y'all don't remember
that? Out a fucking check like an idiot. Well, and his checks said gay money on them.
I know that's right.
Which was just a quiet, and he didn't really. I don't think I was certain that he was gay until he had given that check to my mom for something. But like, it was just like a cool way of saying, we're here, we're queer, get used to it, and there were lots of little ways that different people throughout my life were, and other peers of mine, to where we were like, cool, like we grew up like, cool, it's all good, right? And we, but there's other things that we don't understand.
I think that we talk about things like this in a very casual way because, like you said, we grew up with it. So in DC, where I'm from, there's like signifiers that people will point out in my father's generation, the generations before, where they just knew that someone was homosexual and it wasn't a thing. It wasn't an issue. It wasn't a problem, but you just knew, and like, that's what it was.
Well, Johnny down the street, who's always been femme, like, he's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't worry about him.
I'm Brenda's roommate. Like,
that's not her roommate. That's not her roommate.
Her friend. So they're just friends. They're just really good friends.
That's really a thing.
But because it is Pride, I did want to talk a little bit about the I'm Coming Out Diana Ross episode.
Yes.
Now Rogers has talked about this a lot. I think I saw a video actually like recently, because every other Pride, people like seem to circle back to the song.
Yeah.
So wanted to just like flesh out a little bit of that episode and the research that went into it.
I mean, I've known Niall a long time, so he total legend.
How casual that was.
Total.
Like, yeah, I be texting Niall or whatever.
Niall is the homeboy. He was on for dinner.
He was at Havana.
Not the outpost.
Oh, you guys are funny. You guys are funny. You're funny. No, I mean, like he blessed me with a call from Europe, which was like, thank you so much for taking the time. But like, he wrote a song for Diana with the mindset of like, this is going to be the gay version of Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. That was in his mind from the first time he thought of the phrase, I'm coming out, and how exuberant and catchy and perfect that phrase was, but at the same time, Diana had been telling him, I think I'm going to leave Motown. I'm going to leave Berry Gordy, which was a big, huge thing for Diana Ross. She was one of the biggest artists in the world at that time. Motown was a hugely important label. So for her to leave Motown, was a big, huge thing. But she was thinking about doing that as part of her own flowering as a person, right? As a grown up. So she's looking at the song one way. And, and I'm getting this story from Niall because we searched. I can't find any example of Diana Ross talking about the song in public at all, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Why is nobody asking her about the origin of the song? Did you know you were making a gay icon? Well, no. When she was singing it down, she did not know that part of it. She thought about it personally, and she was super happy with the record. She took it over to Frankie Crocker, who was then the biggest black radio jock in New York City, who had broken many artists. He was super influential and important in the music business. She played it for him, and he was like, that sounds like you're gay. Like, are you gay? Like, what are we talking? Like, that's what people are going to say. What are we talking about here? And she came back to the studio with Niall very upset and despondent and like, what have we done here? And it was a battle of several months, and Niall is so funny because he was like, because he's a producer. So he's, worked with all sorts of superstar, sensitive, diva artists. And, he's a very straight shooter. And he said, this is the only time in my whole career that I lied to an artist. Diana was like, is this a gay anthem? And I looked her right in the eyes and I said, no, it's not. And yes, it was. And he knew it. It was important that Diana Ross do it, right? Because she was so big and she had been a star for a long time. And so it gave the record just an imprimatur and a seriousness and an elevation that no other artist could have given it.
Yeah, it's funny that you talk about how she was like, wait, what's going on? Because we actually recently did a live of our episode of our podcast talking about like gay icons and things like that. And Diana is very much a gay icon now. 100%. So it's like, and shout out to Stable Arts for hosting us down in DC. But it's very funny how a lot of like these women who are not necessarily a part of the queer community through this like one song, like Psyce Peniston been living off of Pride for the last 30 years,
my
right?
Gosh, she is booked forever and ever, amen.
Right? How this one song really like activated the queer community and that they're now like these queer icons.
Yeah.
Off of one song.
And I think it's important that we recognize how some of these divas do change the conversation for gay men just by being themselves and being someone that they look up to or being someone that has actually like given back to the community in any kind of way, because their music doesn't necessarily lean any specific direction like you talked about. So it's important that we uplift them and notice what they're doing. And in Diana's case, whether they know what they're doing or not.
I mean, you say one song, and it's kind of interesting for me because partly it's who Diana was.
Exactly.
Right? And the ability that she has, I mean, the beauty of the song and the voice is timeless, right? Like that is important. And, I mean, she was a relatively older artist. She had been a star for a while. You remind me of like this story where somebody asked Picasso when he was in his 60s to draw something for him. He's sitting in a cafe and he took for like 1 minute, he took a napkin and he drew on the napkin and he hands it to the guy. And the guy's like, oh my God, this is amazing. I want to buy it. And Picasso says, it's a million, whatever currency they would use. It wouldn't be dollars, but whatever, $1 million. The guy's like, what are you talking about? That took you like 1 minute. And he's like, no, that took me 40 years. Right? And like, yeah, it's one record, but who she is and what she brings to the record after decades of superstardom, of classy stardom, of femininity, because the record started from Niall seeing a bunch of Diana Ross impersonators in the bathroom. So right, the community already had a deep love for her. So for her alone to give this back to the community is so meaningful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right, and that's what I mean by this, like the giving that one song was a signal, like, "Hey, I see you," you know, and that's what makes you the gay icon is when you can, you receive the love, but you're also sending it back and explicitly sending it back out.
Yeah. Or even like how we refuse to stop talking about Beyonce until I get those visuals from her. Renaissance. It's literally like she has been a gay icon.
He wants these visuals so bad.
No, I'm gonna.
I don't understand what it is because she always does that, right? The visual part of the album, and this album is. I love this album to death. We could talk about this album for an hour if you want, and it is so visual in its sonic presentation. You know what I mean? There's so much going on with the samples and the dynamics and the movements and like. And I'm like, why isn't there? There must have been something that like we shot something and we didn't love it. And I'm just guessing here. But like you see, like she's constantly working. So if there's something not coming out, then something is wrong, right? Because she's constant. So I'm just guessing that she shot something and then it's like, you know what? I don't love it. And then it's like, well, it's going to take us a while to get because everything has to be perfect. It's queen. So if it's not perfect, then just don't. Better to put out nothing, right? Than to put out something that everyone's like, it could have been better. It should have been better, right? Because she's a 10 every time, right? With everything.
Exactly. I love that even in this conversation, we're all fed up. We all really want the visuals. Beyonce, what are you doing? And she's teasing us by sneaking little clips and snippets in the live shows. And I'm just like, girl, when I see you.
She showed it. Because the Lemonade visuals definitely deepened my experience with that album, right? And,
absolutely.
And so I'm like, okay, so now you have made an album. It's a concept album, right? It is a theme, right? Because we don't make albums anymore. We make LPs where it's a bunch of different songs. Yo, this is an album. You are talking about disco, right? You are talking about like sonically, it all fits. So where are the visuals that would help me further understand your vision?
Y'all about to start a support group and advisory council.
Did y'all already go to the Renaissance tour?
I'm going in August.
Okay. I watched on Instagram Live.
I'm going in.
We'll talk offline.
I'm going at the end of July. I just checked today. Wait, did I miss it? July 30th.
Yeah. What city?
New Jersey.
Okay.
Yes.
The first show is in Philly. I will make my decision the night before. That's where I am. We'll talk offline. We'll talk offline.
Like that to decide the night before.
She's fed up.
Everyone listens to the podcast. No, I don't really resonate with Beyonce's music that much, so I don't know if I can handle so many hours.
I'm sorry, I misheard you. I know.
That's
what I heard. It's really not what I heard. What? You better get your girl because I don't know.
I am the resident hot of the show. It's fine. I will take all of the flack. I got her. It's fine.
You'll be the pain sponge.
The thing is, I want Beyonce to be something she's not, and that's where our point of contention as women comes in.
What do you want her to be?
I want all of her albums to sound like All Up in Your Mind. I want all of her albums to sound like Haunted. I don't want any of that like nice wife stuff. I don't want any of it. I want her to rap. I want her to have that growl because she gives us glimpses in every album, and I get so excited because I love women that sound like that. As Shaka Khan is in the back,
okay.
I have on this wall we got who's on there?
Millie
Jackson is on my wall. Betty Davis is on the wall.
Okay,
those are my kind of girls.
Okay,
and she gives me glimpses of that kind of girl, like a Joy Gilliam. All those women, those are my dolls.
Okay.
And we talk about this every episode.
When Beyonce does them, sometimes I get really, really excited, and I'll be like, "Girl, make a whole album. Be like Mariah Carey, that secret rock album that she might release soon." You know?
See, that's very interesting because it's a very thoughtful critique, right?
Yeah.
It's a very, it's very deep. Like you relate to one part of Beyonce, I think as deeply as we do, but you're like, I want more of that girl and not, I don't know what, you don't want Sorry, you don't want that girl, you don't.
I love that he
even though the demo is amazing.
The original version.
Wait, so to you, is her taking him back like a loss or a bad thing?
Uh-oh.
I believe in black love, but I think it would have been fire. She was like,
bye.
Just for the sake of like, because I'm Beyonce, what? Like, just for the sake of like women empowerment, but I also don't believe in breaking up the black family. Because like, if you show me a picture of the Carter noses, I will start weeping.
Yeah. It's her. Stephanie will like have you on the fence about this for days, and I am tired, honestly. As a partner in crime, a co-host, and a friend, I'm just like, girl, we get it.
You don't see that Beyonce you like on the new album?
Yeah, yeah. On like
America Has a Problem.
America Has a Problem. All Up in Your Mind. Energy.
The girl that Stephanie is talking about is always there.
Always there.
She's not non-existent, but Beyonce toys with us because like we will never get a full live version of Kitty Cat. She also shortened that video and is giving us glimpses in the trailers, and I'm just like, Stephanie's never gonna leave me alone.
Or like 6 inch. 6 inch is like Beyonce's top 5. No one cares about it, but like me
and me.
Oh, okay.
But I also like enough.
So Formation is your girl. That's what you
want.
Formation is like when I'm in my HBCU mode, I do like Formation.
Yeah.
But what that's Lemonade album. For Lemonade, I like 6 inch and what's the other song on there?
Don't Hurt Yourself.
Don't Hurt Yourself. Oh, Don't Hurt Yourself. Beyonce's top 3. Beyonce's top 3.
It's the poppier, brighter pageant queen Beyonce that you don't really care for.
Right.
Beyonce loves to derail a conversation one day.
Does. I like her when she's dark and like, you know?
Okay.
But then on the inverse, there's something really like happy about this performance segment that we're getting from her. And I'm just like, Doll is having fun again because the Formation World Tour was a little bit darker. It did kind of give like, I'm Beyonce, hear me roar, which I love that too. But now to see her be able to like smile again and like enjoy the performance and give us personality in ways that we have. Beyonce be in the comments. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So she got tired of people saying, I'm a robot. I'm too perfect. I'm over choreographed, all of that. And she said, well, I'm just going to perform heated freestyle every night now.
And have fun.
And have a ball. I'm going to click my fan. I'm going to engage with the audience. I'm going to tell y'all to sing. And if y'all sound bad, I'm going to act like y'all sound bad. Like she's just being herself a lot more, and I think that is something that every type of Beyonce fan can appreciate.
We all like that.
But Beyonce is not even on the docket for questions we need to ask him, and I love that
she still comes up.
well, two things. I appreciate that she is a broad enough artist that she's making art that is hitting you where you want to be hit, and where you want to be hit and where I want to be, because I don't love every Beyonce song, and they might arrest me, but I don't love every, right? So there's enough great work, right? And it's great enough that she can hit all three of us in even in different places, all right? Yeah. And we're, but the other thing is, like, when you were reading your little run of show, and I was like, we ain't talking about that.
We are. I'm pulling my notes back out.
I don't want to be like, I'm not like being like rude about it. I'm just saying I can see like this shit is just going to take a life of its own and just go where it go. And she had like, here's the menu, and I just overturned the table and like, let's just talk.
But that's happens when music nerds get in the room, right? Yeah. Like we have a plan, and then we start talking about the runs in Virgo's Groove, which is Beyonce #1 song. But okay, we're going to get back to our run of shows. So, you talked about Nile Rodgers, who I wouldn't consider one of your peers or age mates at all. But I want to talk about artists that were entering the game as you were as a journalist, and like if you can think of one or two artists and kind of like track your, I guess, ascent, like simultaneously to each other.
Well, I mean, the one that comes up, and maybe somebody else will come up also, but like Janet Jackson and I think we're the same age or almost the same age, and there was an interesting parallel. I mean, like I remember her as Penny on Good Times, who lived down the hall, and when I was still at an age where the greatest fear in the world was getting a spanking from my dad, she came in and had an iron burn on her back, and that traumatized me as a child. Oh my God, like people do that to children? Like, and my mom was like, no, I would never do that. I'll just have your dad whack you with his hand. Um, but when she was doing oh God, Control, you're about the same age as a teenager as her that she's projecting, looking, can I get a little more responsibility? Can I get a little more space here? I'm about to go to college and get a lot of space. So like, can I drive the car? Can I go stay out late? Can I go here and there? Like, can I have some freedom? So she's talking about what I'm going through, right? Like more than any other artist I can think of. And the first big review that I did for Rolling Stone was a Janet Jackson album. What was it? It was the one that had the Q-Tip samples, Joni Mitchell sample song.
Velvet Rope. Got Till It's Gone.
No, after Velvet Rope. What was the one after Velvet Rope? Was it Janet? It was Janet. It was Janet with the lowercase J. That's the album.
Okay.
And I did, and it was a double album. So they made a box out of it. And I don't remember what I said, but I really put a lot of energy. When they gave me a 400-word assignment, I worked the hell out of that. And I microscoped every word and thought about every sentence. I put all the effort possible into those little assignments. And, I just wrote my ass off, and people were like, yo, that was really well written. And I wasn't making an artistic point that wasn't, like, the album was great. Like, it wasn't like, but just the way that I was talking about Janet, like, people were like, yo, that was great. So that was another place where our careers sort of, like, touched. And just watching her grow, I interviewed her in person once for, like, 5 minutes at a junket. That happened, but I wouldn't say that was part of the journey. But like just sort of feeling like there was a similar sort of progression over time. I remember I saw her. What was the tour she had when she would like pick a man out of the audience and strap him on the?
All for You.
Yes, I saw that tour 3 nights in a row.
Wow.
And there was at one point in that show where she cries. And I think I was in my 20s. Pretty sure I was in my 20s when I saw that. And maybe it wasn't All for You. I saw her 3 nights in a row, and she cried at the same point in the show every night. And I was like, oh, it's a performance. And the first night I was really like, wow, she's like so into the song that she cried. Like, wow, that's amazing. And then the second, third night, like, oh, she cries every night. Like, okay, and it kind of pulled off the rapper for me a little bit, but not in a bad way. I was like, okay, it's a show. I'm getting it more. So it kind of like learning.
Problem Q is very hard if people don't know.
Yeah, it's not something I know how
yeah. So I mean, so I've seen her sort of like grow. In an interesting way that sort of paralleled, like, okay, now we're both here. I mean, the other one that kind of like De La Soul to me is so important because I loved hip hop from the first time I heard Rapper's Delight, and I was buying every rap cassette that I could find, and just loving it, and I felt connected to it. But then I got De La Soul's album the 3 Feet High and Rising. And through the first 6 or 7 songs, I wasn't really sure what was going on. They had a record in French. I studied French at school, but what the fuck are we doing here?
And this is why we said you're infamous, because you keep it 100.
And then they got to the song where they're frogs talking to frogs and rapping back and forth of this frog said to that frog, blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh no, this is some bullshit. And I pressed eject and I threw the shit in the back of the little Honda Prelude that I had and didn't even think about them until Potholes in My Lawn came out. And I was like, yo, that record is the shit. Whoever made that record, I already have that tape. So I dug in the back, put it in, and now the second time I understood them and I got them and I fell in love with them and I understood that they were talking about suburban connection to hip hop, which is like, that's me. And I'm like, this I feel truly connected to. This makes me feel like I really am part of hip hop, right? Because that's who I would be if I was in hip hop, because I'm suburban. I love this culture, but I'm not from the same world as Slick Rick and BDP, KRS, and all that. Like MC Shan, like that's not my world. Like that's my father's world. But De La's talking about where I'm from. Like so I felt a deeper connection with them, and so just following them through their career has been extraordinary because they've really been pushing the boundaries of what is hip hop over time. So I love them. I think that touches your question.
Those are really 2 good picks that you selected, because when we both just saw Janet,
oh my god,
the most recent tour, and the level of excellence at 56 years old, like we were at different shows, so I was like ignoring his text messages to the group chat until I saw the show, and then I was like live texting, and I'm like, the stamina, the
breath control,
the ability to command a stage, like I mean, it's just like, again, she is the blueprint, right? Seriously. And to have sat on that throne for 40 years is amazing. And then, like, no one was touching Janet. I mean, she was still hitting those moves, like
her choreography. We both have dance backgrounds. I went to performing arts high school. Like, it's a whole thing. Her choreography is not normal choreography. Like, this is actual dance class, play studios, Millennium Studios, like Boom Boom Cat For Your Life, hitting the movements, hitting the nuance. This is an and count. You have to wave on the backbeat in the pocket type movement. And she's up there going at it with her own dancers. It's not modified for her. Like, she's not Missy Ellioting the choreography to fit her style. Like, it's hard to do. Mm-hmm. And she's eating it at like my mom's age.
It's so funny what you just said, because I knew Lorianne from way back in the clubs. I always wanted to ask her out, and I was always afraid. Like, yo, that chick is serious. People were puffing them. How you gonna ask her out? And like, and I had her on my podcast. I was like, yo, back in the day, I wanted to ask you out. She was like, you should have. I'm like, oh.
I was like her.
That's so funny. That's so funny.
Lorianne is an icon.
And then, for you to now kind of, I feel like Janet is like in her like victory lap now, where it's like she was already a level icon, like a legend in the 90s. I feel like now she's at the icon status where she's like, I've more than cemented myself. I have like children and now grandchildren in terms of like artists, right? And then for De La Soul, it's a really exciting but also bittersweet time for them, because now their music is on streaming. They have control of their music in a way that they didn't have for a very long time. So also it's kind of seeing the parallels in them now is that, like you talked about, how the griot is kind of letting you do your thing and letting you kind of ride. And then for Janet, I feel like you are in the age of less accessible music information. Like we are in an era of like, we grew up on VH1 learning everything about the 70s, 80s, 90s. on VH1 watching MTV News, and now the kids don't have that. No. And so you are literally like in the next to last class of people, right, that were able to do that. So you're also kind of at that, like, in terms of music journalism, that same kind of Janet level where you're like the last of.
Yep.
You know? We used to, I used to buy albums, right? Because we had to purchase albums, right?
Remember that?
With my little
Friday, and they moved it to Tuesday.
Right. With my little allowance money, I had to pray that it was good, because I wasn't just getting another $12 for nothing. So if it wasn't good, I'm like, I remember I bought LL Cool J's first album just on the cover. I had not heard any of the records, but that cover, that's for me. I bought that, loved that. I think his second album was fire, and I bought Walking with a Panther, I think was the third record. Was like, nah, dog.
It's a no for me.
You fucked up. And that's my allowance money. Like, that shit, and it's actually really valuable to a certain extent. The streaming era, where everything is available, right? Mm-hmm. I can listen to anything. I can try anything. Any art name you guys throw out, my kids throw out, I can check it out really easily. Obviously it's not better for the middle class and upper class artists, but it is really valuable that we can all try any album we want at the click of a button. Mm. On the low, we were having a war, like me and the other people of my generation, who people know of: Scott Polson Bryant, Kevin Powell, Joan Morgan, Dream Hampton. We were peers, and we saw it as a competition. I'm writing about Jay-Z for Rolling Stone. You're writing about Jay-Z for Vibe. Okay, we'll see who gets the better story. You're doing Puffy for the New York Times. I'm doing him for whatever we do. Like, okay. And I'm reading their shit. I'm like, okay, he got something I didn't get. Okay, all right. I'm gonna get him on the next one. I'm gonna figure it out. Like, my story is better than his. We had a better hangout than his. My story is better. So it was definitely competitive. I think it was mostly internal, but you say little things. Everybody reads the stories. Everybody, I don't think people understand the competitiveness that was going on among that group of people.
And y'all were celebrities in y'all own right. You know what I mean?
Especially to us. Like, kids who wanted to be that. Like, I used to look at TRL and be like, I'm going to do that one day. I would see you on the red carpet and be like, I'm definitely going to do that one day. So it's interesting to hear you answer kind of a question that I was going to ask was like, well, how do you see the shape of music journalism as it stands today? And you answered it perfectly.
All of us looked up to Greg Tate, Nelson George, Stanley Crouch. Joe Morgan is a little bit, she was on before me, so her too. We looked up to them and saw them as brand names, and Harry Allen, them doing incredible things with the pen, with the computer, whatever, and trying to compete with them, and as far as just writing goes, nobody could ever compete with Greg Tate and do what he did, so it's like, okay, so he will be number one forever because nobody can come close to the way that he wrote, the insights that he had, the research that he could pull together quickly is it's just a genius. But in a way, like, that's the North Star, like everyone's ultimately competing with that.
Yeah.
And since we brought Joan Morgan up, and because Lauren headlined The Roots, I want to shout out Joan's book about the miseducation 20 years later, or almost 20 years later. That book was fire. I used to work at Weeksville. She did a book talk there. So if y'all don't have that, get that. Also, make sure when Chick Heads come home to Roost, that's an OG classic. Shout out to Joan Morgan.
That book taught me too, because we used to always see each other at there were lots of listening parties. Every album that came out, the label would throw a listening party at some club, and that's where I would see everybody, right? And there's at least one a month. And we're going to these things, and I'm seeing Scott and Kevin and whoever. And I didn't see Joan for like 6 months, and I'm like, "Yo, where's Joan? I ain't seen Joan out. Like, what's going on with her? Oh, she's working on her book." And I was like, "So, if you want to get like a book or some next level shit done, you have to remove yourself from some part of your life, your social life, something." In order to have the time and the focus to get it done. I never spoke to her about it. I don't think she even knows this, but like just seeing her absence from a social scene that we were both part of, I was like, oh, oh, that's okay. That's how you do that. Okay, okay. And it really showed me, like as a very young person, like, okay, you want to get some shit done? Like that's how you do it. And like people are teaching each other without even realizing it. She doesn't know that. She might even believe it because that happened in her absence. Right? Like that where's Joan? She's working. She's grinding. Like, oh, you want to be like that? Like, okay, then that's what you got to do. And for a long time, let me tell you, I was the king of sorry, I can't come to your party. I'm working on my book. I said that for years. And like, if you can't handle that, then you're not my real friend. Because like, I'm working on my book. Whatever book I was working on is 10 years of like, I'm working on something right now. So like, sorry, I can't come to your party. Right. And there's no party that I look back on and was like, damn, should have gone to that fucking party.
Yeah.
But I look at the books I did, and I'm like, yup.
Worth the sacrifice. So we kind of talked about this a little bit offline before we hit the record button. But because you've been in the game so long, because you've had a level of access to a broad range of Black music, we kind of wanted to talk about like where you are with music now. Like, you mentioned your kids, like who are your kids listening to? Who have your kids put you on to?
Wow.
Who are some newer artists that you're seeing in your era? We talk about the lineage.
Yeah. We do this thing on the podcast every episode where we have a now playing and we go back and forth about what's something new that we're listening to, just to like get people to listen or like tell them what we're interested in. So we're basically doing that with you.
I mean, my ears are relatively old. I am usually gravitating toward things that are a little bit older, or at least artists who are a little bit older. My daughter put me on to. She said Steve Lacy and who's the other one that I had? Brent Faiyaz. She was like, you should have Brent Faiyaz on the show, on my podcast.
I don't know about that, little sis.
So that was great. He was great. He's great. And she's like, you should have Steve Lacy. I had never heard of him. So we're working on that.
Wait, real quick for Steve Lacy, did you listen to his most recent album yet?
No, not yet. No,
okay,
I'm not in my research mode yet.
Report back. Listen to the report back. But he used to be part of the Internet, which was the like R&B jazz band that came out of Our Future. So and he's like really instrumental, and like his first mixtape is really good. You would like it because, or I think you would like it because he's like, because you can hear references.
Yeah.
I think that's why we both like Steve Lacy. He's an artist where you can hear the references. You know he's done his homework. You knew that he was raised in a very Black household that plays certain things.
Good.
So that his music comes out the way that it does. And he's a musician first. So I think that also makes a difference.
You can hear Prince, you can hear Freddie Mercury, you can hear Bootsy Collins. Like there's people that you just know he had to have tapped into to get his sound to be where it is. And it's very alternative in comparison to his previous works with the Internet, even though it's still very musical. So definitely listen to it.
Okay. I love that. I mean, I don't know who else knew. I don't know who knew I could tell you. That is not generally where I am pushing, or I'm open, but
when we say new, we don't mean like someone that's like 20 something. Like you can literally be like, we're currently living for the Dinner Party album, which is Kamasi Washington, Terrace Martin, Who else on now?
It's a bunch
All
of
the
people.
California jazz guys.
Yeah, like
Okay.
they weave in and out of each other's music so much, it's hard to name them all.
Because I think Ninth Wonder might be a part of the collective.
And then they have like Tank samples. So Darrell Babs is in the building.
You know who I've been?
Yeah, so they don't have to be necessarily young people, but like art, like because I know Michelle Diego. Michelle has a new album coming out.
Really?
The singles that released are bomb. So that's in my now listening.
I mean, this may or may not. I go to Soul Cycle a lot. And I got into it for the cardio because I play tennis every day, and a lot of the people I play with are much younger than me. There's this whole theme to this conversation of age, and so I really think a lot about cardio. So I started going to Soul Cycle a lot for my cardio, and one of the classes was really banging out this Kim Petras record.
Okay.
And that record is hot as hell.
And who is it with?
She has a song with Nicki Minaj, but it might not be that song.
No, I think this is just Kim. Hold on.
Kim's new album is doing really well. She's had a lot of mixtapes or like EPs. We don't know what albums are anymore because people just throw music at us all the time on streaming. But she had projects before, and apparently this is her first actual debut album, and it's been doing really, really well.
I mean, the song that I've been jamming is "Treat Me Like a Slut." Which I
song.
Right? Which I always, it's a fire record.
Yeah.
Right? I love this record. And so I found that in that class, and then I've been taking that into my life. It's just a fire record. And I like supporting her, and she was dope on Unholy. Right?
Oh, something Unholy is everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that Unholy is unbelievable. There's an energy to that record that's like, wow, like you can't trap that in the molecules. Like it reminded me of this was Fuse told me, let's say on Monday, you're going to interview Gaga on Friday, right? First album, right? So we didn't know who she was. Paparazzi was out. I think there was one other record out. It was a hit, but it was like, is this a fluffy, like disco-y, post-disco chick? Like, who is this chick? And I wasn't really sure. I honestly, it was only like 2-3 singles out, and I was not vibing with the music. But I'm like, I'm going to crush this interview, but this feels very poppy and forgettable to me. And it was like the day before the interview that Bad Romance came out. And I was like, wait a minute. If you have the ability to make that, you are a much deeper artist than I realized. Yeah. And let me rethink who you are as an artist before I go into this conversation, because that record blew me away, and Unholy blew me away in that same way of like there's great songs and there's great recordings, and that just mixes, and you can almost smell the record and the steaminess of what they're talking about. And though Kim, I've been trying Kim. It just takes a lot for me to get really invested in a new artist. And I'm trying to think of the last artist who was brand new to me, who I was like, I like you, I'm rolling with, I don't know who that is.
We're gonna send you a playlist.
Yeah,
what we think you might like.
I'll try your playlist, because I want to see. So it's like, since we've been talking about age, when you're in your 20s, it's really easy to make new friends, right? And you're making new friends, and you're in the friend economy. In your 30s, there's some of that. After 40, it's really hard.
I'm thinking of my people.
People are not really because you have so much going on in your life that it's hard to make a new friend that you are breaking your social habits to, not just once, but we hang out, we talk repeatedly to make a new connection. It's hard. It's not impossible, but it's hard. And I'm finding the same thing, even with television, I'm kind of relationship averse. I don't want a new relationship. I got my shows I like. You got to blow me away to make me be like, okay, I'm in I love you. I'm in a relationship with you. The first season of Succession, I was like, this show's all right. My wife was like, yo, you got to fuck with the second season. And then they come with all their jokes and their drama and their backgrounds and their money. I was like, okay, I love this show. Right.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to resist falling in love with something new. So you got to come hard for me to fall in love. You know what I mean?
And that's where this show comes in, because we owe it to the people to let them know there's new good stuff out, or there are older artists that are still making new music that is also good. Because we haven't had the full conversation, but we could give the listeners a peek into it right now. It seems like DJs, event venues, and like people in general are stuck in music from like the 90s and the early 2000s. When we go to festivals, when we go to concerts, even just in between the breaks, we're not really hearing anything new. And all we do is talk about new music. So I want to dissect the disconnect between what people liked of that time and why there seems to be nothing that has come after it. Even though the music industry isn't over with, like there's still music being made. But that time that we have is
I do think that something happened. I think that the rise of the internet and the rise of a million gatekeepers with the rise of the internet, because I used to go on 10 different blogs to find new music, right? Like blogs that were like, we're going to throw hot new records, hot new links at you, MP3s at you. Like, oh, over here, I can't remember what the name of them were, but but it became like there's lots and lots of gatekeepers. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I think the sort of people and the opportunities to become a musician changed. And I would have to talk to more people in the music industry to fully understand. But like, I think the way the music industry was constructed, and I'm not saying the music industry is good for creativity or good for music in general, but before 2000, the way that the music industry was structured led to a lot of the music that we love and that DJs are still centering to this day. And something changed after that has led to music in general, let's say, maybe connecting less.
And it's extremely segmented as well, because we can talk about Kim Petras and Unholy, but like, none of our friends probably know that song. No. And that song was huge.
We are completely balkanized. There used to be, I'm listening to this album, so am I. We can bond on, we're both. Now, it's rare that people are having a. So I wrote about this a long time ago about the death of monoculture, where there used to be a sense of like, we're all watching this TV show. We all went to see this movie. We're all listening to this album, and we can have a shared relationship loving that album or television show or movie. And now there's so many entertainment options in a given day that getting people coalescing around a show or an album or a movie becomes nearly impossible. So we're not having monocultural moments like I mean, if you're a millennial, you may not even be able to understand what it was like when Thriller came out, right? When Nirvana came out, when The Matrix came out. And I mean, like the penetration of that in terms of everybody is consuming this at this time. It doesn't happen anymore. And it's not necessarily a good or bad thing. It's just culture functions differently, so we don't have these massive monocultural moments anymore. And like you're saying, so I can't bond. You guys are bonding with your co-hosts saying, here's some new stuff. Try this that we're listening to, right? Yeah. As opposed to saying, we all love this, right? And I think Beyonce has created one of those with Renaissance. There's a gigantic audience that's listening to it all at once. But for the most part, it doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, she's probably one of the few artists that is still able to like command in that way. Like her power is so great because of that. And I'm not even saying that as a fan. I'm just like, it's an observation to be made. Yeah. And the time frame that we're seeing music constantly played from is probably that last segment of music where everyone liked it, or everyone was able to talk about it and enjoy it and experience it at the same time. So that's a really good observation, because we're just going to concerts mad because they won't play Rihanna. And I think that it's a deeper conversation to be had. Thank you.
When you saw the Super Bowl performance that day, did you like it? Did you get it?
Yes, I did.
You got it right away.
I didn't get it right away.
You thought that it was a birth symbolism that day?
I believe she was pregnant. I was like, she could. Maybe we shouldn't say this. Whatever. Just say anything in our pocket.
Oh, you thought she was faking the pregnancy?
No.
So in our group chat, we have an R&B group chat. We just talk about music or whatever, and we were all watching the Super Bowl. But for months, we were talking about how we loved that she was not racing to get skinny for the Super Bowl.
Right.
So when she would come out and look like a regular mom, not a celebrity, meaning she wasn't like real thin, we're like, oh, she'll be skinny by the Super Bowl. She'll be skinny by the Super Bowl. And then she wasn't skinny at Super Bowl. And I was like, y'all, she really
doesn't care.
She don't care. Like, she's really like, I'm a mom and I'm going to have mom bod. And I did not realize that she was actually pregnant until she posted the picture of her stomach like late that night.
So,
but that's not what I'm talking. But that's not what I'm talking about.
He's talking about the symbolism of all of the dancers being in white, technically sperm, her being red.
No, I didn't get none of that.
I said that because I was like, okay, she's pregnant. But then I was like, why is everything red and everybody is white? I was like, this looks like a science project. Like, this looks like we're being told a story. And I don't even think that it was like super deep. It was just like, this is what it is. So I was like, this has to be
sperm.
What she's trying to say. So I thought that immediately, but the room I was in was not having it.
No.
They were yelling at me like, no, what are you talking about? You crazy. You always think you're right. Shut up. And I was like, well, turns out.
Right? Because I didn't even get it. I think 2 days later, I saw a TikTok. Because I was like, nah, that performance wasn't it. Too one note. It was boring. What the fuck? And it was like, you can't criticize a pregnant woman. And like, true, but she stepped on stage and like she could have crushed it. And then when someone's like, no, she's the egg and they're the sperm, I was like, oh my God, that was brilliant. And I completely missed it. And then I was like, wow. Then I was like, wow, I didn't get it. Because I was watching my wife and my daughter, and somebody said something not fully getting to that idea, but like a step toward that idea, and I was like, no, that's dumb, no. Like, wow, that was brilliant.
Rihanna's insane. Come back to us. We're never getting an album. It's fine.
Yeah, and to be fair, I definitely
working on an album. I thought
she's been saying that for like years, but
that's why I just keep ordering Savage and see, so I can feel close to her. She's never put out.
Close to You is a song.
Love that song. Rihanna ballad. If you don't know it, Rihanna's the queen of ballads. She only makes like fast singles, but most of her albums are ballads, and we love that. She's a dramatic Pisces. No, but at first I thought.
Wait a minute. Rihanna's grandfather lives right around here. Right? Really? Right here. And just on, so was it Saturday night? Maybe Saturday night or Friday night? I live right, Fort Greene, very black, very artsy community in Brooklyn, very knit community in terms of everybody is very hi, how you doing? Even if you don't really know a person's name, it's still very friendly and hi. And so this brother from the pharmacy, who'd been seeing me come in and out of pharmacy over the years, whatever, was like, yo, you're walking that way. Rihanna's grandfather is down there at the Lotto store. And then he shows me a picture of him and her on the red carpet. And I'm like, okay, great. Thank you. I'm not going to do anything with this information. But, cool. But he lives around here. I'm like, cool. That's amazing. I did not know that. So I'm walking down the street. And as I'm walking down the street, he comes out of the Lotto store. So we are like 3 feet away from each other, right? He looked me right in the eyes. I'm like standing right there. So now I can't help it, right? So now I'm like, hey, man. Like, personality, big, like, welcome. Like, hey, how you doing, man? And he goes, do I know you?
The elders do not cut
Please
cards.
don't play it. And I'm like, I live around here, right? And like that usually gets you into a conversation with most people who live around here. But he said, do I know you? And I'm like, I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, I'm gonna try to slide in here into a conversation, but and I said, we have not met before, but he misheard me, and he thought I said we have met before, and he goes, where?
Yeah.
Super serious. So
I love the elders.
Now I repeat, we have not met before, hoping he'll be like, okay, we've come this far. Like, what do you want from me? And I said, we have not met before. And he looked in the other direction and made a gesture with his hand, like, move along. Move along.
Listen,
I head down and I walked away like, yes, sir. Like,
that's all you can say. That's all you can say.
I tried to strike up a conversation. He was like, not having it. Be out.
The elders don't play.
I don't know you. It's not happening. Keep it moving.
That sounds like somebody in my family, actually.
But again, since we like to drop info on the podcast, you're talking about the richness of Fort Greene. Folks should definitely see Kevin Powell's film, Nelson George's film about Fort Greene. It specifically kind of focuses on the 80s and 90s and that time when it was like Spike Lee, Rosie Perez, Common, Brooklyn Moon was popping. Shout out to $5 Lunch. That got me through my 20s in New York.
My daughter is in the basket. She was like first 3 months old, and he had a little quick shot of her in the basket, and now she's going to 9th grade in the fall.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. Time is flying because that's like 14 years, and that movie, I don't feel like I saw that movie that long ago. But I guess so, because I was in New York for 15 years and recently moved back to Philly. But y'all should definitely check that film out. Brooklyn Bohem's the name of it. If you want to really understand what was going on in Brooklyn culturally in the 80s and 90s.
I mean, Nelson does a great job in that film as a documentary of explaining what Fort Greene is about. But, period, Spike gives you the vibe of Fort Greene in Do the Right Thing, and even more so in She's Gotta Have It. It gives you an artistic, poetic sense of what it is to be here. And those films, I know She's Gotta Have It was shot here, and Crooklyn was shot here in Fort Greene, and that gives you a beautiful look of Fort Greene. But Spike has been the poet, the visual poet of this area, which has been, just extraordinary. And his office is still here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. R.I.P. I used to love the little burger spot, Mulaney's across the street. They're no longer there.
Is Cornerstone still there where they do the brunch? It's like a live band playing.
I don't think so.
That used to be my favorite part.
I only know 3 steps down. They used to be over there.
Okay.
Black-owned restaurant. Shea Oscar used to be over there, but now it's in Bed-Stuy.
Yeah, I left in like 2011, 2012, so everything I know might be
gone. It's gone, yeah. I was recently up there for BAM weekend. For Dance Africa weekend, and I was like, where am I?
See?
What is this?
See?
So many new things. But I think we're winding down our time together.
Okay.
This was so fun, and we honestly could have kept talking because you are definitely one of our people.
For real.
You don't cut no cards. You say what you think. You keep it honest, and you know what you're talking about.
Yep.
Which is something that's really important to us as a podcast. But a lot of podcasts are very opinion based, and folks don't do their homework. They don't read.
There's no facts.
Yeah. So we really appreciate your knowledge, your culture, yeah, and institutional knowledge as well. So
guys,
this was great. Before we go though, when is season 2? Are you promoting that season 2 of Being Black coming? Or
no, we are not finished, but we are going to have it out this year. So you'll get it sooner than later.
Come on, soon. We love that. Can't wait to listen.
So y'all have plenty of time to catch up on season 1 of Being Black. It's a lot of great episodes, and if you love the Psyce, you'll definitely love Being Black because it's the same nerdy content, a little less ridiculous. because we are absolute lunatics.
Insane.
But we thank you. We thank you for like decades of like excellence and rigor and commitment to Black culture in general.
Thank you.
Because we don't see folks like that anymore.
It's just not the same.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate. I've enjoyed this time with you guys. Absolutely, you guys are fun.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. And the playlist is coming. We got you.
Oh yeah,
yes,
we're
please.
sending that.
Yeah, please. I want to see. I'll expand my horizons. I'll try new things.
We were doing episodic playlists, so like every episode will come with one, but we'll do a special one just for you because we stopped doing that.
We got jobs, okay? We got lives, I got cats to raise. It's a lot.
She keep on saying, "I'm a mother."
She said that's her excuse for everything now. She don't want to go to something. She's like, I'm a mother. I got kids. I can't. I'm writing a book. That's gonna be my new thing. I'm writing a book. But I'm gonna start saying, I'm writing a book. I can't come to your party tonight.
If you're gonna do that, you gotta be honest to the book gods and actually
write a book.
Write that book.
The Psyce book coming soon.
Right. Right. Forward by Touré.
There you go. Now you're thinking.
We cannot thank you enough. This has been super fun. You have been a wealth of knowledge in our lives and definitely someone that the cast looks up to. And I know our listeners would really appreciate this conversation.
I'm happy to do it. This was fun.
All right. Well, y'all, another episode of the Psyce. Y'all know, share, like, comment, tell a friend to tell a friend. If you aren't following Touré on the platforms, do that. And make sure you're subscribed to Being Black. Subscribe to the Psyce podcast. And we out.
Peace.
A podcast.
A show.
We Psyce ourselves at the end of every episode.